I'm Dr. Sarah Olivo.
And I'm Dr. Liz Seidler, and this is I'm Fine, Everything's Fine, College Edition. We are back in our Finding Friends series. As a college student, the need for connection and social support is more important than ever. But many young adults find it hard to make friends as they adjust to the demands of college life and living away from home for the first time. If you ask any incoming college freshman what they're most nervous about before they go to school, most will say they're worried about making friends. Sarah and I hear this all the time. Regardless of how socially successful you were in high school, the fear is real, and everyone predicts they will be alone or socially miserable. These social fears can become so overwhelming that they interfere with our ability to be interpersonally successful. Last week, we discussed the factors that interfere with our ability to find and maintain healthy relationships at college. In this episode, we're going to hear from students talk about the pressure they face when trying to make friends and keep them. We'll talk about how the transition to college is a breeding ground for social anxiety and how often students are filled with worry and self-judgment. Lastly, Sarah and I will teach you some strategies to talk back to your social anxiety, face your fears, and build friendships while staying true to yourself.
And just a quick heads up before you listen to this, the audio is wonky. This is an early interview. We were still learning a lot. And thanks for your patience in advance on that.
I am a sophomore at a smaller public school in South Carolina, and I am going into my sophomore year.
I always thought sophomore year was pretty great because freshman year is out of the way.
For sure.
Is that what it feels like for you, or does it feel like it's a different reaction?
Yes, I feel like I kind of have my stuff figured out more. Mm-hmm. I'm not nervous about going in and making friends. I'm excited to make more friends, but I don't feel like I'm starting from scratch. Yeah. I feel like I definitely have a life there, and now I get to start living it.
When you say starting from scratch, tell me more about that.
So I chose to go to a school where the only people I knew were from social media. And I think since I have more of an introverted personality, I was super scared at first, but I also wanted to try something different than just going to my state college just because I knew people. It was hard at first, but then I realized that most people are kind of in the same boat as you. Most people don't have a friend group going into it, and everyone's just looking to meet other people. So when you kind of look at it like that, making friends becomes a lot easier.
That's a really great reframe. I mean, a lot of times when I'm talking to people, I'm trying to think about, okay, how are the following things interacting? How are our thoughts? Like, what are our thoughts telling us? And then how does that make us feel sort of physically in our body? And then what are the actions that go with it? So a lot of times, really commonly, if you have, for instance, like a lot of anxious thoughts, then your body has a little bit of a fight or flight response. Like your heart starts to race or your muscles feel tight. And then you're more likely to have that signal of, oh, danger, danger. And so you might avoid or not do as much to reach out. So what were some of the thoughts that before you realized and were able to reframe in that really great way, oh, I'm not alone here. I'm not the only one who doesn't know anybody. What were some of your anxious predictions about meeting new people?
I was scared going into it because first off, my roommates were from completely different parts of the country. So we were all very different. And I think there is like the thought like, oh, what if people don't like me? And I mean, like, I know I was not the only person thinking about that. Every teenage girl is going to be nervous about whether people don't like her. But I'd say I was definitely nervous, like, oh, what if people do find out I'm super shy and they don't want to be my friend because of it? Just kind of things like that.
I think about the idea of hooking into a thought. When I say that, I mean, how much when you have a thought, do you believe it? We have thoughts all the time. Like someone did a study. I don't know who did this study. I don't know who had time on their hands to decide to count the number of thoughts we had each day. Like
Oh,
someone
wow.
who really has a lot of time on their hands, I guess.
Yeah.
They said we have 80 to 90,000 thoughts a day.
Wow.
That is crazy, right?
Yes.
But some we buy into more than others, right? So you can have the thought like, no one will like me, and be like, oh, that's silly. Of course they will. Or you can have the thought, no one will like me, and be like, well, I guess that's that. Them's the facts. And I'm going to like stay in my dorm to avoid that. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
So were there times where you kind of really hooked into that idea before you got used to things where you said, you know what, maybe I won't go out, or maybe I'll, were you really bought into this idea of no one's going to like me? And if so, what did you do?
Yes, I did for sure. I think it also helped because my best friend was very extroverted. So I kind of had that like push, like from someone who doesn't really think that way. But even in the middle to the end of the year, sometimes I would get those anxious thoughts before going out, like nervous to socialize, nervous to do that. And I would just have to remind myself that like when you're going out, nobody's judging you because everybody's looking to socialize. Everybody wants to be around each other. So I think it's fun to kind of bring what you have and to kind of use that to meet different people because it is an opportunity to meet new friends.
Mm-hmm. Well, so one piece of advice you're saying is if you're an introvert, find an extrovert.
Yes, it does help.
To tackle.
Yes.
I could totally see that. It's true. No, I know. I was, I'm one of those tricky people where people think I'm extroverted, but I'm actually introverted.
Yeah.
And then I remember just feeling such relief when I was out with someone who was an actual extrovert. And I was like, yes, all the hard work.
Yes, they do. I would agree with that.
Not even hard work for them, damn it. That's not fair. So at some point in time, you said, I went outside my comfort zone. What were some examples of you saying, all right, I'm just going to push myself. Even though I feel anxious, I'm going to act brave.
I think for a lot of things, like going through sorority rush, you do have to put yourself out there a lot. You do have to socialize and talk to a lot of people. Even after you're in the sorority, you still have to like meet people and find your group. And it's kind of an awkward phase before you found your group, kind of with any social activity you do. Like you're kind of getting asked the same questions every day, like, where are you from? What's your major? And it gets awkward and repetitive, but it's kind of like trusting the process. And I think I would have to remind myself, like, every time I did get anxious, like, this is my opportunity to reinvent myself. Like, I can, even if I am anxious and nervous to put myself out there, these people don't have to know that because they didn't know me for the first 18 years of my life. They know nothing about me. And I think that kind of gives you like a sense of, if you really embrace that, it kind of gives you like almost like a little bit of confidence to kind of fight those anxious feelings. Like I can be anyone who I really want.
I love that idea of sort of allowing yourself to remind, like, no one can see your internal thoughts.
No.
And I think that is, some of the things that people might say is like, I look, if you imagine like a duck on the water, they look all sort of smooth. Underneath the surface, their feet are sort of paddling like crazy.
Yes.
And I imagine that that's sort of how it feels sometimes when people feel shy or introverted. It's like they go out and they're able to put on a smile and act confident, but a little bit of their, internal workings are sort of like paddling and trying to keep up. And let's just be honest for a second. Sorority rush is like hell on earth for introverts.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
It's like, if I'm imagining hell, it's going into a room full of people and having to talk about myself, the same story over and over again. So I'm
over and over again. Yes. No, you're very right.
Okay. So we talked about sort of the big obvious, like if you think about the college trope, right, is like going out and meeting new people and partying and blah, blah, blah. But those are like the big, what I think of as like the big capital B, capital P, big party stuff. Yeah. But there's also the small social interactions, like kind of the like lowercase socializations where you're in between class or you're walking across the quad or something like that by yourself. And those are times too, where I think they're not talked about a lot.
Yeah. I think that was one of the biggest things for me because I went in thinking like, oh my goodness, this is going to be so great. I'm never going to be by myself. Like I'm always going to be with a friend. And I think for the first semester, I really kind of embraced that. I was like, I don't want to be alone. Like if my roommate and I would have classes at the same time, we would walk there and we would wait for each other. Even if one of us was out like 15 minutes early, like we would wait for each other. And then we would go like frantically text a group of people to go to the dining hall to get food or to come back to our dorm afterwards, so that it's always like so that you're always by yourself. And then I think second semester, I started taking a lot of morning classes, and a lot of my friends chose like to sleep in and do that route. And I was walking to class a lot by myself. If I would get to a class early, I would kind of sit and find a place and do my homework. And I really think that was good for me because I was able to be comfortable with being by myself. And I think one of the most important things in college is, at least for me, is kind of becoming your own best friend, because I circled through tons of friend groups this year. And at the end, all I really had was myself. So I think being comfortable with being alone is huge, because you do need you time. And it is nice to kind of just put your AirPods in and walk to class by yourself and not have to worry about talking or seeing anyone.
You're sort of describing it first where it's like, you know what? I'm starving, but the idea of walking by myself to get something to eat is so much worse than the hunger. It's like that fear sort of trumps everything else and layers over it. And, you know, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I can imagine a lot of reasons for that. But of course, I start to think about why people don't want to be alone. Some of it is that anxiety piece. Like, I don't want people to look at me and assume things.
Like, I think nobody really cares at the end of the day. If I would see people sitting by themselves in the dining hall, I wouldn't think anything of it. But for me, I had this thought in my head that if I were to go sit by myself, like people would think, oh, she must not have any friends. She's kind of a loser. Like those are just kind of thoughts that like come into your head, even though they're just so not true.
This might not be what you were talking about, but that a lot of times when we're alone, our own thoughts get in the way. One of my clients early on said this, and I was like, I'm going to steal that. I was like, I thought it was so good. But she said, my mind is a dangerous neighborhood. I don't like to walk in alone.
Yes. No, that's really good. Yeah, I completely agree. And I think a lot of people agree with that, even if they don't want to admit it, because like, it's like when you're alone, you kind of have the chance to just only be with yourself. And I think if you can switch your mentality into, this is a good thing. Like I do get to be by myself. I do get to think things that I wouldn't be able to think about if other people were there. And I think it really kind of gives you the opportunity to love yourself more and be okay with yourself. Because when I first got to college, there were so many people that I immediately started comparing myself to. Because for a lot of people, when they get there, they're surrounded by more girls, more guys than they've ever been in their entire life. So there's so much more room to compare, and there's so much more room to get insecure or anxious.
One of my favorite metaphors, and you know, one of the also fun things about my job is I hear metaphors that work for me too. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good one. Resonates with me. And this one was one of them, which is this idea of what happens with comparisons. You know, so let's say you're kind of in a car and you're driving towards a destination, and whatever that destination is might be different for everybody. So for you, it would be, I want to go to school and I want to meet people. I want to meet new people who feel like good friends to me. And I want to find out new things about myself.
Yes.
Right? Outside of like academics and blah, blah, blah. Right. I just,
that doesn't really matter.
But just on the journey of like, I want to become friends with people who make me feel good about myself. And I want to feel good about myself too. And you're on this road and you're heading towards that journey. And then what happens with comparisons is if you look left and you look right, suddenly you're looking at someone else being like, well, more people are in that person's car.
Yeah.
And I'm in my own car right now. or you
Yeah.
look right and you think that person has a nicer car, better clothes, so on and so
Mhm.
forth, right? And then suddenly
Yes.
you're not even on your own journey anymore. You're sort of wavering, or you've paused to look left and right. And you're doing all these things to compare. Now, further on down the road, maybe you have more people in your car and they don't, right? So it's all
Yeah.
about that at certain points in our journey, I think we end up looking so far left and right that we get out of our lane. And none of those
Yes.
things, none of those comparisons are helpful for you getting on your path to finding people who
Yeah.
make you feel good about yourself, who you have a good time with, who make you laugh, who listen
Yes.
to you when you're having a hard time. And also, it doesn't help you figure out what you want. What kind of car do you want? How many people do you even
Yeah.
want in your car? Do you even want a whole
Yes.
crowd? I think that's a good metaphor to sometimes say, all right, hold on, I'm doing this compare thing. And it's doing is halting me, making me put on the brakes or making me waver in my own path. Like what is
Yeah.
my journey again? If I want someone in
Exactly.
my car, I can invite them, but I don't have
Yes.
to,
Yes.
And I certainly don't have to because person on my left has more people, or I
Yes.
certainly don't need a brand new car just because the person on the right does. I can sort of just really think about what helps me get to where I want to go.
I love that. That's really good.
Being alone, there's such a stigma about being alone. It's not always a bad thing, especially because I don't have a roommate. So everybody would go to lunch and dinner with their roommate, and I couldn't do that. So I'd have to sit down with people because there's not like a single table. So I would just be like, hey, I'm gonna sit here now, which was super awkward and not fun. But I actually met one of my closest friends here by just like sitting down, which was really awkward and painful, but I did it.
Was it worth the pain?
Absolutely. She's awesome.
Is she the one with the car?
No, I wish. The guy with the car, he's my friend who lives upstairs is got met from across the hall. I don't even know how we met.
I feel like people should have to wear a sign that says whether they have a car or not, so you know who to try to be friends with.
I agree.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, I should raise that with the administration.
Yeah. Or just like a camera into the parking lot. And so you can be like, oh yeah, I see. Okay. He's got a big car. He can take a lot of us. Or she's got like a Suburban. Let's get.
Oh my God.
I think with a camera in a college parking lot, you'd see some things you don't want to see.
That's a fair point. Also, do you love my psychological advice? I'm like, totally make friends based on their car.
It's good advice.
We think outside the box.
It sounds like a lot of the factors that interfere, that's, I think, Sarah, you and I see, whether it's anxiety or worry thoughts or, making predictions that things aren't going to work out well, you really have worked hard on not letting that guide how you decide to find friends, and that you really have exposed yourself to, like you've described, like weird and awkward situations. And you've been able to see, like, I've survived, it's okay. Can you think of anything that still is difficult for you as you try to navigate and find more people that you want to spend time with?
It's hard to know who to spend time with. Who do I invest time in? Because I can't hang out with 3 people at once who are all in different places. And it's really hard when people are like, let's go out, like, let's go do something, come hang out. And I need time to myself. It is borderline impossible to say no. I'm an introvert. I'm someone who needs alone time to function. And I find it's been really hard, really, really hard to stay in touch with friends from home and keep those relationships. And that's all, like, I can't go out. I have to spend time with, like, I haven't called my friend in 2 weeks. Like, I can't go out, and accepting that that's okay. I just don't, like, I feel like in the early stages, I can't ever say no to anything. And it's been exhausting. And I think I should probably learn to do that.
What are some of the thoughts that keep you from being able to say no? What do you worry would happen?
What if something awesome happens and I'm not there? And a big one is, what if they just stop inviting me?
I always think one of the common fears is like, they're going to figure out that I'm not fun or something.
I am fun. It's just I'm fun in bursts. And I know that. And so I'm afraid that, like, people will catch on to my moodiness if I'm not, fun 100% of the time. And like when I go do stuff, I'm like 100% in. I'm like full send it. But I can't half at, like, if I'm not in the mood, I just can't bring myself there. And I think that that's okay, but I'm afraid that people will catch on to that and be like, it's just like not in the mood right now. Like, I don't know. They'll catch on to the fact that I can't always go out with them and then stop inviting me.
Yeah, it's like I can't show them the whole me. So let me just make sure they only see this one particular part.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you had experiences that show that doesn't necessarily happen? Because you talk about high school.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't have that many friends in high school. I had friends in my senior year, but not at a deeper level. I feel like they only saw the fun part of me. I was too scared. I had my best friend from 13 years and my girlfriend and a friend who I've been friends with for 15 years. And so like they've grown up with me. So they've seen that, I had no choice because I was a child. And then, making friends, I'm scared they'll see like sad me or spacey me, or like sometimes I'm like just so tired I don't talk, but like I'm still down to hang out, but I won't have much of a personality in the room. And I know that those friends are like chill with it, but I've never really shown myself 100% to people and then had them consistently invite me to stuff. Usually they stop inviting me to stuff.
I think it's something where it's hard to know because we don't know the sort of the whole picture, but I can imagine a lot of external reasons why that might be the case, depending on the type of school you went to, or depending on the quality kind of character of the people in your school, or what their needs were at the time. Sort of that sense of like, oh my gosh, I need to be around people who are constantly on because I want to take a break, right? There's got to be so many external reasons why that might have been the case. Yeah. Do you find that you're able to come up with those? Because otherwise the idea becomes, well, it's internally coming just from me. There's something wrong with me.
Yeah, I think the friends that I made were in high school were a year above me. And so when they would go out with their friend group, it's sort of hard to be like, hey, can this sophomore come with us that you guys don't know? So that was probably a hard thing for them. But I still talk to those people. And then when they graduated, it was like, oh crap, I just lost my 3 best friends. And so then I had to go make new friends. And, they invited me because of my ex-girlfriend. So now I feel like I need someone to bring me into something. It can't just be me. Like they would only invite me if she was also invited, which is fine. But, I felt like it wasn't all because of me.
Yeah. I think that what's important to maybe focus on here that's really challenging when you make the transition from high school to college is that just because things happened in a certain way in the past, even if it happened, I don't care, 100 times, does not necessarily increase the likelihood that it's going to happen again. That even though you have some evidence that, maybe I was only included in things when this other person was also invited, that it's new circumstances. It's not always going to be stable like that. Like Sarah said, it could be related to other factors. And it's difficult, I think, to not let memories or past experiences we've had socially influence some of our vulnerability in terms of our thinking about, is this going to end positively? Is this going to be like how it was last time? I think it's a big challenge to not kind of forecast that it's going to be the same way. I always tell patients I work with, I'm like, I don't know how you guys feel about meteorologists, if you're like buddy with Al Roker or something, but I just feel like as I've gotten older, weather predictions have gotten worse and worse and worse, that we can't even predict if it's, they tell me it's going to snow 6 inches in the morning and my kids get let out of school and there's like half an inch on the ground. It's really similarly to our thinking. We're really bad at making predictions. So I think when you recognize that there's some faultiness in terms of our ability to forecast how things are going to go, hopefully you can kind of bring your mind more towards the present and really focus on your behavior. I'm just going to put myself out there, just like how you said before, like what's the worst thing that could happen?
I loved talking to both of these girls. I felt like, first of all, so sweet and fun, and also just brought up a lot of the things that we had talked about in last week's episode. So, we won't get to it all here. For you, what did you find was one of the things that really spoke to you in terms of the 5 areas that tend to get in the way of relationships?
Well, one, I want to say I agree. It was wonderful talking to them. And I think they were really vulnerable and honest about something that's really challenging, admitting that it's hard to make friends. Everyone assumes that it's like this easy task to do. And I think the thing that I really stuck out to me was this idea that we're constantly worried about what other people are thinking about us, and that we're beating ourselves up a lot of the time in terms of how we think we appear to other people. And I know definitely for myself, I'm sure it's true for you, Sarah, this is a lifelong experience in terms of how do we handle worry thoughts that we have in social situations. And definitely, I think, is exacerbated when you enter into college as you're trying to sift through a lot of people to find the people that you want to spend time with.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, certainly we joked with Amy last week. It's not like we graduate from college and therefore graduate from having these anxious thoughts. And, I think it's really interesting. You and I are both therapists. We both practice cognitive behavioral therapy, but there's actually a lot of different ways to approach thoughts. I think what we all agree on is that we have automatic thoughts that people can't always help. So you have these automatic thoughts that pop up, and you don't always have control about what that thought is going to be. But you do have control about how you approach that thought, how aware you are of it, how much you buy into it, and then what you do with it. That part you do have control over. But those first thoughts can still trickle up. I have my kind of go-to is like, they're going to figure out I'm not fun. I still think about that. That has been a lifelong friend that has come along for this journey of mine, and it's probably not going to go away. It's there. I think I just approach it a little bit differently.
Yeah, one, not to provide you reassurance, because, we're not in this business to provide reassurance, but I do think you're fun, Sarah.
Oh, thanks, Liz. Thanks.
I think my biggest worry thought is that they're just going to want to hang out with someone else over me. I'm just not going to be good enough to capture someone's attention. And I think that's always kind of stuck with me as I'm starting to build new relationships, is how can I be aware of what type of thought that is? And then what am I going to do with it once I identify what type of thought that is? So I think it might be helpful if we talk about and kind of label these different thought patterns as thinking traps. So one of the ones that I just alluded to is fortune telling, kind of predicting that I know at some point that the novelty of who I am is going to wear off and that they're going to choose someone else. Again, my anxiety is kind of leading me to believe that, even though it might not be rooted in logic. So that's one type of thinking trap. And I think it's really common when, even before you start school or you're going to a party, you kind of already make a prediction about how things are going to go. Can you think of another one, Sarah?
Yeah, in one of our people that we interviewed, one of the students mentioned that when she was sitting alone, she assumed people would think, I'm a loser. So there's that mind reading thinking trap, sort of assuming that other people are watching her, thinking she's a loser. And she was even able to say, when I see people sitting alone, I don't make that assumption. So what I think is helpful, you and I might even have a different approach to this. Hey, heads up, guys, it turns out that there's not just one way to do psychology. So when you're working with somebody and they're in your office and they're doing some mind reading and they're in one of these thinking traps, they're fortune telling, they're looking into the future and deciding it's not going to work out, what's something you would do?
So I would say the number one go-to skill, and I have a little quick acronym for it. It's called the 3 C's. The 3 C's stand for catching our negative thought. That's the first step, kind of what Sarah and I were just doing. I'm going to label it, identify maybe what thinking trap I'm stuck in. The second C is I'm going to check it for accuracy. What evidence do I have to support that this thought is true? What evidence do I have to support that maybe this thought is not true? And then the third C is now I'm going to change it to be more realistic or balanced. So catch, check, change. So if we went through my worry thought that maybe I'm going to become less interesting or people are no longer going to like me and they're going to move on to someone else, I'd really want to walk through, okay, so now I'm fortune telling. I've kind of catch that negative thought. Now I'm going to check it for how accurate it is. So what evidence do I have necessarily that that's happened before in the past, particularly because I've become less interesting I really don't have any evidence. I mean, most people don't go around to your face and say, you suck, you're less interesting. Then I have a lot of evidence to suggest that I've been able to maintain positive friendships with people for long periods of time, and that they haven't necessarily jumped off the ship and of our friendship. So a more realistic, balanced thought, and this is really key, not positive, because I can't predict that all my relationships are going to end up turning out well, is that there is a possibility that I could start a friendship with someone and it could end quickly. There's a greater likelihood or possibility that I'm going to be able to build a lasting friendship. So 3 C's, guys. What about you, Sarah?
First of all, I love it when there's a little like memory device, because my memory is crap. So that always helps me. And I also want to say, I've seen pictures of you with your friends. Like, clearly people enjoy spending time with you. And I don't think you're paying them off. So I think that is a good, nice, realistic, balanced thought there. We heard one of our guests reframing her thought, where she said, I just went in there and said to myself, these people are also probably trying to meet new people. Everyone wants to make new friends. So she did a beautiful job of reframing that. Some thoughts are easy to reframe and test out. I think others are really harder to challenge. So I often tell people, try to reframe it. Use those 3 C's is really great. Sometimes people get in this predicament where they're like, the more I try to reframe it, the more I start to argue with it. And my mind ends up coming up with other evidence, and it just becomes more of a thought that won't go away, more of a rumination. And so then I start to think about not so much reframing it because it's not working in that instance, but how can you unhook from it? So that's some language you might hear me saying a lot, which is you can notice the thought and don't worry so much about whether it's true or not, but think, is it helpful for me? So the questions I always say is this thought helpful? Is it hurting me? And is it helping me towards a larger goal? So typically, if you're mind reading and you're thinking, oh, that person thinks I'm a loser, well, it's not helping you because it's an unkind thought. It is hurting you because it's making you feel cruddy, even though you don't have any evidence that they're thinking that. And if your goal is to meet people, and you're walking around thinking, I'm a loser, well, it doesn't help you with that bigger goal. So I try to use both. And I like to think, hey, try one, see if it works. But there's this other option for you if you start to get in your head. We heard a lot about worry thoughts in this episode and how to manage them. We're going to be coming back to you with a few quick tips, some sort of mini episodes, so to speak, in the next few weeks. And then stay tuned for a few exciting things. Liz and I have had the past few episodes to learn a lot and to think about what works, what doesn't. So stay tuned for some exciting changes. Thank you to our guests for sharing their stories. This podcast is for college students, and we want input by college students. Please reach out to us by text, email, or voice memo at imfinecollegepodcast@gmail.com or 929-500-2231. Tell us your story, give us tips on what kinds of topics you'd like to hear, or give us feedback about an episode.
We'll share episode announcements and resources on Instagram at imfinecollegepod. And last but not least, if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to the podcast. Every hit of that plus button helps us keep going.